Why does she still think of you even when it looks like she's moved on? Why does your silence speak louder than any words you could say? And why does her pride try so hard to hide something her heart hasn't let go of? She laughs. She posts. She goes out, or so it seems, a new hairstyle, a night out with friends, maybe even a new guy standing beside her. But beneath it all, behind the curated stories and those half-hearted smiles, there's one name she can't shake off. Yours. She told herself she let go. She convinced her friends she's fine, but the mind doesn't lie in silence. And in those raw, unfiltered moments, late at night, alone in her car, when her phone lights up and it's not your name, that's when she thinks of you the most. In this video, we'll break down exactly why you're still in her thoughts, even if her words or her silence seem to say otherwise. We'll explore subtle shifts, hidden realizations, and the quiet power of a man who moves with intention and peace. A man who, like the Stoics taught, knows that his worth isn't defined by who stays, but by how he stays grounded in who he is. Part 1. Her silence isn't absence. Just because she doesn't reach out doesn't mean you're off her mind. In fact, the more she tries to avoid you on the outside, the louder your presence becomes inside. A stoic man doesn't chase silence. He lets it speak. Think about it. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't need to go quiet. Indifference doesn't need effort. But silence takes energy. Maybe she muted your stories. Maybe she deleted your chats, or avoids familiar places. But these aren't signs of detachment. They're proof that she still feels something, because if she truly moved on, your presence wouldn't echo this loud. This is where your mindset matters. A man rooted in discipline doesn't see silence as rejection. He sees it as space. Space for her to face her own emotions, space for him to stay rooted in self-worth. He doesn't chase mixed signals. He lets time reveal what words can't. And here's the paradox. Your quiet absence becomes the loudest thing she hears, not because you tried, but because you didn't. So next time, when there's silence, don't panic, don't push, just observe, because sometimes silence isn't the end. It's the beginning of her own inner storm. And the stoic man? He knows storms always reveal what calm waters hide. Before we move forward, take a moment to let this settle in. Silence is never just silence when emotions still linger. If this part resonates with you, share your thoughts below, or simply type, "I no longer chase silence. I understand it." Your experience might help someone else find clarity in the noise. We'll dive into another quiet but powerful force: memory. Because sometimes it's not the relationship she misses, it's the way you made her feel. In the last part, we explored how your silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. And now, in your calm withdrawal, something inside her is starting to shift. She's still caught up in emotional noise, still rattled, still chasing validation. But you walked away with your dignity untouched. And it's in that silence, that intentional detachment, that a deeper change begins. The Stoics taught, real power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. You didn't stay calm to prove anything. You stayed calm because that's who you've become. And that contrast, that steady, grounded energy, is something you can fake. Now it lives on in her memory, not as a regret, but as a benchmark. a quiet standard of what true inner strength feels like. You didn't compete. You didn't beg. You didn't try to win her back. And that's exactly why your absence now echoes louder than anyone else's presence. When the world around her gets noisy, she remembers your stillness. When the drama piles up, she remembers your patience. You never had to raise your voice to be remembered. You just had to be real. That's the quiet impact of a grounded man. The contrast you left behind wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. And once a woman feels that kind of depth, everything else begins to feel small in comparison. So if you've ever wondered, did my presence matter? The answer is yes. It still does, and it will, long after others fade away. Because real peace never begs for attention. It simply can't be forgotten. But that peace, that contrast, didn't just leave a memory. It also planted a question. In her heart she can't seem to shake. What if? Previously we talked about the quiet contrast you left behind. Now, while you've made peace within, she's still wrestling with a battle inside herself. While she struggles with that internal tug of war, you've already found peace. That's what Stoic men do. They don't beg for feelings to return. They let clarity lead. You've reached a place she hasn't, a place where emotions no longer control your actions, where your value doesn't hinge on anyone else's validation. Yes, her heart might still whisper your name in silent moments, but her ego, it screams louder. Don't be the first to reach out. Don't look weak. Make him text you first. She thinks vulnerability is weakness without realizing true strength is honesty. You'll see signs. She watches your stories but never taps like. She asks mutual friends about you but won't message you herself. She drifts near your world but acts like you're invisible. That's not indifference. It's her ego shielding her heart by pretending it feels nothing. But here's the thing. The more she denies what she feels, the more it quietly eats at her. Pride may win the silence, but it never delivers peace, and this is where you stand out. You didn't crumble under pressure. You didn't spiral into reaction. You chose stillness over noise. Marcus Aurelius said it best. If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. That's the mindset you've chosen. You don't chase illusions. You live in truth. And the truth is, if her ego matters more than the connection, then your peace is worth more than her pride. So while her heart aches behind a wall of ego, you've already moved forward, not because you don't care, but because you've learned to care about yourself more. That's the quiet strength of a man who refuses to fight for something that won't be honest with him. Because now, your growth, your steady rise, doesn't just linger in her memory. It forces her to look at herself. As your growth forces her to look inward, something else starts to unfold. Her friends begin to see the truth before she does. A Stoic doesn't need to announce his departure. He simply lives in a way that makes his presence impossible to replace. Number 9. Her friends notice it before she does. They notice the subtle shift in her voice when your name is mentioned, the way her eyes linger too long on your profile, the way she scrolls through old photos pretending she's just browsing. When someone asks, "Are you really over him?" she says yes, but it sounds more like a question than an answer. Her friends aren't fooled, not by her silence, not by the staged smiles. They see the space you once filled, even if she's too proud to admit it. Because when you've impacted someone with your presence, patience, and principles, you linger in ways that can't be ignored. Stoicism teaches you don't chase validation, you don't demand acknowledgement. You remain grounded in your truth, knowing your presence was real. And that means your absence must be felt. She may not speak about you, but her friends begin to see the signs. They notice that no new guy quite measures up, that she compares, even without realizing, that your name still pulls something out of her, no matter how indifferent she pretends to be. That's the quiet power of a man with depth, a man who leads with calm, not chaos, one who knows his worth and never needs to perform for attention. You never needed her to say it aloud. That's the beauty of your presence. It echoes even in silence. And eventually those echoes become too loud to ignore. Not just for her friends, but for her too. Number 10, she misses being understood. You didn't just listen, you understood. Not the surface level kind of listening, but the kind that saw through her silence. That heard her pain, even when she smiled and said, "I'm fine." You didn't just nod. You made space for her truth, and you held it without judgment. Now that depth is missing. Maybe she's surrounded by people who reply quickly, but never really hear her. Maybe she laughs, but doesn't feel safe enough to be vulnerable, because there's a difference between being heard and being understood. And now she feels that difference, like an ache. Maybe she thought she could find better, or simpler, or more exciting. But what she truly misses is the way you understood her without her needing to explain. A Stoic doesn't offer that kind of presence lightly. He knows his understanding is a gift. And when that gift is mishandled, he steps back. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom, because he understands. Not everyone is ready to be seen, and now that loss is felt in shallow conversations, in messages that don't land, in nights when she wishes someone just got her. But you've already moved forward with grace, because the man who once understood her deeply now understands himself even more. And that realization, it lingers in the quiet places she can't escape. But as you move into your next chapter, she begins to feel something else even more clearly. You were the anchor in her emotional storm. As she starts to realize no one else sees her the way you did, the silence becomes more than quiet. It becomes a mirror. She catches herself wishing someone, anyone, would just get her, without her having to explain. Stoicism teaches us this. Our virtue, our inner calm, must never depend on someone else's behavior. And that's exactly what she experienced through you. You weren't centered because of her. You were centered in spite of the storm she brought. And that kind of energy doesn't fade. It lingers. It comes back in sleepless nights, in the silence, after arguments with others, in the weight of her own unrest that no one else knows how to soothe. You didn't crave attention. You didn't chase her moods. You simply were. And in being that, you gave her something she didn't even know she needed. A man who led with quiet strength. Now that you're no longer there, she doesn't just miss you. She misses the man who made the storm feel survivable. Have you ever had someone realize your value only after you were gone? Because the truth is, you didn't need to raise your voice to be remembered. You didn't need drama, chaos, or control. You showed up grounded, steady, intentional, present. And that kind of presence doesn't disappear. It echoes, it shows up in the moments she least expects. It stays when others leave. Through this journey of silence, memory, and contrast, We've seen that a stoic man doesn't become unforgettable by seeking validation. He becomes unforgettable by mastering himself. He holds peace when tested. He walks away without bitterness. He grows, not to be seen, but because growth is who he is. She might tell the world she's over it. She might even tell herself, but that part of her, the part that remembers how you made her feel safe, seen, steady, that part doesn't lie. So let this be your reminder. You don't need to prove your value. Keep living with clarity, with calm, with quiet strength, because in the end, the man who walks away with dignity leaves behind something far deeper than words. He leaves meaning. If this message resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Drop a comment, share your story, your reflections, or simply type, "I don't chase, I carry presence." Someone out there might read your words and realize they're not walking this path alone. If this video gave you value, give it a like. It helps more than you know. And don't stop here. Check out the videos on screen now. Each one dives deeper into becoming the kind of man who doesn't just earn respect, but lives in a way that commands it without a single word. Until next time, stay grounded, stay strong, and always choose peace over performance.